Sorry.
Good deal. Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda and any calls for additional items.
Everybody see that on their screen?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion. Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
I'll second it.
Robin. All right, so all approve, say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? All right, motion is approved. Now we'll move on to the minute meetings for our November 19th meeting. Hope everyone's had a chance to look those over. And so now I'll call for a motion to have those approved.
I'll make a motion. This is Deanna.
Thank you, Deanna.
If
I'll second it.
and I may be out of order, I did want to clarify the Sheila Langen application approval was added into the minutes from the original draft minutes. That was the only change of any significance that just got left off of the original draft minutes. That's all.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. So all in favor for approving of the November meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All righty, that motion carries. All right, moving on to business and updates. We've got the program policy and the spec review.
I will jump on that. Before we dive into that, was anyone expecting, do we know who Area 5 Envirathon is?
Probably Kelly, maybe.
Is that Kelly? Okay,
Kelly.
great. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thank you. Sorry I'm late.
No problem at
No
all.
worries.
And before I dive into that program policy conversation, I do just want to give a special congratulations to our newest steering committee member, Robin, for winning the Chafin Employee Award. Very well deserved, and I was glad to see that recognition. So well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
For as far as actual program policy discussion, I think we have two subjects from Northern Virginia that have come up, and I believe that's it. Wanted to just provide an update on, if you recall, the Blackburn infiltration project that we approved conditionally a couple months ago. They had provided a bunch of follow-up information already. And the last piece was that each check dam will be made of 2 pieces of 6x6 lumber stacked on top of each other and secured to the ground with 1/2-inch rebar, making the total height of the check dam 11 inches tall, since the true dimension of the lumber is 5.5 inches by 5.5. I feel like that adequately addresses, and I'm sorry if you don't recall exactly when, it's that kind of long linear infiltration trench that was going through their backyard. That was the only remaining question we had left, was what was the height of those check dams, and therefore how big of a ponding area would that create? And I think that fully addresses the questions that we had. So that's all I've got on that one, unless people have other questions or concerns on that. I think it's addressed what we had. And then Judy, do you want to dive into the filter strip question on that site you all are currently evaluating?
Sure. I guess it's in a sense become a longer term or bigger question, because talking with the designer on that specific project, she is going to go a different direction. So
Okay.
It's not an immediate issue for that one. But I think what we came up against, again, is that the conservation landscaping as a practice in many cases is not ranking high enough to make it, into consideration. And so that was why we were looking at how can we up the game on this project to get some extra points for it. So I think there's a gap between, if it had a steep slope, it would be, it would get points for being a steep slope. If it was, under 11% slope. It could be an infiltration filter strip. So there's this little gap that we discovered. It's about 12% slope. So too steep for a filter strip, but not steep enough to get points for a steep slope. That was where we were with it.
Right.
And so we were looking at, can we add some core logs or do some kind of slope management and call it a filter strip with a little slope management.
Right. And I will say, Judy, that this is one of those where when this scenario comes up, in my mind, it makes me go, I feel like this is an unintended consequence of those stricter conservation landscaping policies rather than, accomplishing some clear goal of, we're not trying to prevent a project like this from happening. So this is a long sloping yard going down to a creek, that, and the ground is eroding. They're having real issues and everything. Somewhere that there is clearly a resource concern and that it would be great to have a BMP in place to prevent all that sediment and everything from going directly into that creek. But by the letter of our law, it's too steep for the filter strip. And then despite our efforts to strengthen our conservation landscaping qualifications, really with the intent of doing away with the beautiful mulch bed gardens that are more decorative than effective for water quality, we're knocking out a project like this that seems like it should certainly qualify. So yeah, Judy got at one thing, which is we could add language that exceptions to the slope policy or something like that could be made if additional stabilization efforts are going to be made. We could simply, on a case-by-case basis, fall back on our authority as a steering committee to make exceptions and say, hey, this one is a little bit steeper than what we normally see, but it's obviously needed. Or we could, entirely rethink our strict new conservation landscaping policies. I say new, it's been a couple of years, but feels relatively new. Because we do hear that a lot from a handful of districts, that projects that they feel like are worthy conservation landscaping projects that they put a lot of time into just don't rank out. And I'm not positive anymore that we really captured. I think we did do away with a lot of the really expensive, mostly decorative gardening type projects, which I think is a good thing. But then there's this, like Judy's saying, this kind of in between where it's objectively a good project, but doesn't quite rank out for some very narrow reason. So sounds like they're going a different direction on this one anyway, but this is a good conversation to have in general moving forward, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this one will probably come before us, and partly they're lengthening it to actually be closer to the stream. So, but this designer is fairly, I think she's only going to do the right thing, and so it is still potentially on the line. She's not going to, make any kind of gestures just for ranking, which we appreciate. But I think that it is still going to be a on the edge project, but the filter strip just didn't make sense in our opinion, even with the, even if there was a slope option, because there are a lot of mature trees she's going to be working around.
Okay.
So there was another area it could have been, but I think she's identified a better area to work.
Okay.
And I do think that, there was one sort of thought from our team is like, can there be a conservation landscape, on steroids, or a level 2 conservation landscape that you are taking additional measures, you are taking steps to make the conservation landscaping really work harder for protecting the soil, and that we can give some credit to those measures like soil stabilization, biologs, kind of thing.
Agreed. Any other thoughts in general on that subject?
Yeah. So you're saying that it didn't qualify for the filter strip design, or the points on the ranking sheet, but
Yeah.
without those ranking points, it wasn't ranking out.
Right.
Still?
Yeah. If it had been slightly less steep, it could be called a filter strip and therefore get the points it needed to meet the minimum ranking score. But because it's a little too steep, it can't be called a filter strip and therefore does not get enough ranking points to meet the minimum 65, which seems counterintuitive. It's a steep slope that's eroding and we're saying, oh, your slope is too steep, so it doesn't qualify now, which is, exactly where we should be trying to tackle a problem like that, it seems.
But it's not steep enough to, I guess there's those points for steep slopes. It's not getting those points because it's just in between.
Right.
It's less than
Also
15%.
that, yep, it's not 15%. So.
So the solutions that they're looking at, just making it a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, and get it closer to the waterway.
Right. She's going to her plan is to kind of wind it around in the more wooded area. And so I think that it will sort of, instead of being necessarily 10 feet wide at every point, which a filter strip would need to be, and the density of planting that a filter strip would need, if she doesn't have to meet that criteria, she feels she can do a better project. Without those limitations. I think it would move to another portion of the yard, which would also need help, but she is addressing a more significant erosion issue where she's working. So she's trying to put the client's money where it will most benefit. The other thing that I think that, just in terms of what you're saying, Kevin, is that, we're being very, very strict. I'm sure others are too, but this is just sort of how the program has developed on the resource concern identification at the get-go. So,
right.
We aren't offering the opportunity to apply to people who don't have a resource concern that we've identified, which seems to address that issue of just beautification projects.
Yeah, and that was something I mentioned in an email to you and the rest of your team, Judy, is that I feel strongly that if we've identified that there's a resource concern and there's a BMP that can address and fix that resource concern, we should be trying to find ways to make that work. Certainly don't want to just be in a position of, well, it's the 2% slope too much, so we can't do it. Like that doesn't make any sense. So whatever, as we revisit program policy in the beginning of the new calendar year, I think we should revisit some of that conservation landscaping policy. And sometimes the solution has been just adding language that says the steering committee can interpret a specific site to say, no, this should qualify and sort of make an exception to the rule, rather than, kind of seems like sometimes when we try to keep changing the rules to chase these strange scenarios, there's always just another one that comes up that's impossible to lay down policies beforehand to address. So sometimes it's good to just be able to interpret a specific one when it comes along.
Yeah. I would also say, though, that the more that we do have policy that we can point to, the worst is to get to the steering committee. Someone spent a lot of time and somebody spending money on getting to that point.
Right. Agreed.
Time to say no.
Yeah, I think we've done well over the years with that it's gotten to be very rare. It's very rare when a project makes it all the way to the steering committee and then we just deny it. Largely that's because of communication too, that we're communicating with district staff, and if it's apparent that a project is not gonna meet our standard, it's generally not making it all the way to the steering committee. But yeah, I think you're right, the more policy in that regard that we have that can help people make those judgment calls beforehand, before putting all that legwork in, is good. We are also pursuing various options for either improving or changing our technical assistance structure within VCAP, because we do often hear and recognize that it's often no fault of the district at all that you go out, you do a site visit, you try to address something, you can't quite find something that fits, or the person backs out, and you've still put a lot of legwork in, but you don't ultimately get any funds back to the district that way. So that's all kind of tied into this and something that we're trying to address with new funds coming in. So always appreciate hearing that feedback from on the ground. That's very useful.
Sure. And thank you. I mean, I think this is great because this is early on feedback for this, client and designer. So I do
Right.
appreciate that.
Any other thoughts on that one? Okay. Kemper, I think unless anyone has any other subjects they want to bring to this group, that was really all I had this month in terms of, program policy type of interpretation.
Okay, very good. Moving along to applications. We'll start with cancellations.
Okay. We have no cancellations this month, and conveniently, the one cost share adjustment we have is also listed as our first payment request. So we can just knock those out together if that works for you. I will throw that to Robin also at a certain point. Let me get, so this is the first payment is the Mark Rieger Rain Garden from Colonial. Let me share. I mentioned earlier, I tried opening every single, oh boy, this might not work as well as I was hoping. I have every single PDF open. Okay, here we go. I think I got it now. Mora is the pro at this. I'm a little slower still. There we go. Everybody looking at a faded Mark Rieger Form 1. Perfect. So just as a little bit of background or reminders on this one, this is one that originally came in as, I believe, 3 separate rain gardens, and we essentially approved 2 of the 3 rain gardens. The third one was only impervious overland flow. There was concerns about the amount of debris that would be going into it, the actual drainage area for it, and so we approved those 2. And now the finished product looks good. I know Robin's still waiting on kind of final plant photos, but it was not an expensive project to begin with, and they ran into some additional cost. Robin, if you want to maybe go into that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So the applicant did decide to go ahead and do all 3 rain gardens. He just paid for the third one himself. But during construction, he ended up renting some equipment and then hiring a contractor to run that equipment for him. It was mostly a sod cutter to remove the sod that he had in place where the rain gardens were going to be built. He used that cutter to then be able to install that sod elsewhere. And then labor to do that task. And then they also ended up renting a backhoe, and the same contractor was hired to use that equipment to dig out the basins. So that's where those extra costs came from.
Okay. I don't see any issue with those as extra costs. I mean, that's pretty common for rain gardens, and even so, he's still below the cost share cap to do 2 rain gardens, so I think that's good. If there's any concerns on those, please raise them, but otherwise I'll show you some of these photos. There's some nice series of photos. It looks like they did a pretty good job keeping the heaviest equipment on the gravel. You always wonder that, like, how much soil compaction did they do? But it looks like they stuck pretty well to this one little path to get over to it. So mulch going in. Always appreciate it being measured. 18-inch excavation depth. And Robin, was this just existing kind of landscaping they already had? I thought so. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Those are all just invoices. I think that's pretty much it. And I know Robin will get kind of final photos to us. But you've seen the completed.
I have, yeah. Yeah, they all, there was one plant substitution that his nursery couldn't find, but it was still native plant, still native rain garden plant. So they were all essentially constructed as designed.
Okay.
They look good.
Any questions or concerns on those? I did not have any myself. Okay. Let's close that one out and we will continue on. Let's see. We'll take a look at the Giacomo rain garden from Northern Virginia as well. Didn't have any concerns on that one, but there were some cool photos, and their cost went down quite a bit. So they originally approved for $3,090 in cost share, and they're down to just $1,859 in cost share. Everyone's seen those rainy photos, the before photos there and during. Okay. So yeah, obviously they're having some significant, rainwater and sedimentation issues there. You see some cool excavation photos and the mulch and everything going in. And this was in this corner here. Always appreciate a puppy in the pictures. And then here's the overflow going out of the property, which that's always tough, but what else are you supposed to do, right? So plants are starting to come up. Judy, did you have any insight onto how they managed to get the cost down so much?
It was all pretty much DIY. So I think that their plant sourcing, they may have gone to plugs more, but I don't know, the details.
Right.
But I do think that they basically had made sure they had enough in the budget and found they could do what they wanted with less.
Great. Well, it works out nicely. We essentially swapped the extra cost share from this one to the Rieger one from Colonial that we just looked at. So almost no change in total funding between these two projects. So that's good. All right. I will skip on down to, and no concerns on the next few. They look great. Conservation landscaping from Prince William, rainwater harvesting from Culpeper. That was the one we approved there. It's where he did, a whole series kind of next to each window across the front and back of his house, and they look good. Living shoreline from Northern Neck is pretty standard, ready reef, no issues there. And then we will take a look at the Timothy Yeaney one real quick. I think the concerns I may have had, I think have already been addressed by Maria and by Judy. So no real concerns there. The project looks great. Get down here. I'll stop asking if you guys can see the application, but if at any point you're just staring at my face, just tell me. So some dramatic, sad-looking before photos in black and white. It's kind of the typical just cracked up asphalt driveway that they wanted to replace. And then great excavation photos, everything going in. Completed project looks very nice. And then this, naturally I saw this final photo of this cut here, and that was kind of just different from what I'm used to seeing. I did receive another photo that there is actually a block wall placed underneath there. At first I was like, wait, is that just dirt piled up with straw in it? I think that's going to be an issue, but they do have grass seed down and everything. And Judy, I didn't think you had any other concerns on that one.
No, they did a great job. When we did our inspection, we did ask them to do stabilization all the way around the perimeter of it, which they did install. And that this area is difficult in that the property line is like right there.
Right.
And also the house next door has been basically condemned eminent domain to access a water tank behind them. So that neighbor is not looking to put any money in their property.
Gotcha.
So it was a little bit of a tough situation, but I think they did stabilize it pretty thoroughly.
Great.
And also that gravel there is actually acts like a little filter strip. It is,
Right.
I think, about 6 inches deep, separated from the tables.
That's perfect. And yeah, it's one of those where it's just every once in a while you see a photo where you're like, whoa, we don't normally see them looking like that. And so it's just good to get a little background, a little clarification on it. But it sounds like they did a great job of finishing that up. So.
Initially I had recommended that they not do the permeable pavers all the way down to that point. So, but they wanted the look all the way down. So,
right.
And they've got a lot of storage there in that. It's
yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
Capture.
Well, I think it looks good. No more concerns on that one. And I will show you all just the next two, permanent payment from Virginia Dare and TJ. Again, this is just going to be because I want to add a reminder for them to be diligent about leaf debris. And before I send a recommendation from the committee, I want to at least show you what that looks like. We're seeing a lot of these right now, obviously because of the time of the year. But I do want to make sure that we're staying on top of it. So this one's not too bad. It is more just leaf debris. And again, like I said, it's just the time of year. But considering this is the initial completion inspection photos and there's already, debris on it, always good to remind them. Otherwise, as always, it looks very nice. So that's all on that one. I'll keep that brief. And then the Plaisance permanent pavement from Thomas Jefferson. Share that one. So if you recall, this was one that we looked at that, really, really having a hard time with runoff from the driveway and being able to grow grass or anything. So I think this will be a big improvement. And they did not have a whole lot of room to work with, but good photos for sure. So a lot of excavation, a lot of work crammed right in between the house and the retaining wall. It seems like they mostly were able to keep it clean and keep too much from running off site. Great photos of the reservoir going in. And I even asked for, there's some really good photos here. So I asked for original copies of them. So they're ones we can hopefully use moving forward. I think these are pictures of a computer screen or something similar, which we see sometimes. And there's all the drain pipes going in. No, that's not it. See all the downspouts routed into it. And then boom, there's some permeable pavement. So yeah, same old thing. It's that time of year. They've got some pine straw, they've got some leaves that's already down on it. So, and it honestly, I wouldn't mind if we make a recommendation that they may need some additional fill gravel between these pavers. It does look a little sparse compared to what we normally see. So I will plan to make those two recommendations on this one.
Who was the contractor on that? Were they from Charlottesville?
Give me 1 second and I will tell you. Let's see. I believe they've done. Audrey enjoyed interacting with them, so it was good. Yeah, Serenescapes. They've done several. Says they're out of Palmyra, but they've done several permanent pavement projects up there for them.
Okay, well, that's good to know because they're kind of, probably about an hour away from Farmville if we had
Right.
anybody. I was just thinking of contractors that might be able to do something like that.
Absolutely.
And that was their quote there, 7,000.
Oh,
okay. There we go. 14.
That was half the quote.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's still reasonable because it's a pretty big area.
Well, it was a smaller actually than usual project, 580 square feet. I think it actually had a little more to do with the site constraints and working in that space. That would be a really good price for what we normally see in the 1,000 to 1,200 square foot range. That's a bit expensive because then this homeowner only got 5,800 back because of our cap on the square footage rate. So, but still not bad, really. All right, everybody hanging in there. And I will show one more, Ray Rosenthal. This is our one project from outside of the bay, completed this month. And it's the same thing. It's just about leaf debris. So looks good. This was a big one. This was a pretty big project. This was 2,730 square feet. It's one of the bigger driveway projects that we've done. And it looks very nice, but it's extensive. Seems like everything went in well. They've got all sorts of roof area draining onto it and everything. I mean, so it's treating a lot of area. And then, you know, of course, the only concern being those leaves, which is not bad. I mean, it's not bad at all. I just don't want it to start building up.
Was that green circle observation tower, or what was
I think that's just a utility port of some sort that they cut the pavers around.
Oh, okay.
And that's it on that one. So a lot of permeable pavement on that site, but it looks nice. So that would be a total of, that's 12 projects totaling $93,314.77, requesting funding this month.
Do we have a motion to approve the 93,314.77?
I move to approve. It's Judy.
Thank you, Judy. And a second?
I'll
This
second
is
it.
Deanna. I'll second.
Thank you, Robin and Deanna. I'll put down Deanna.
Robin, you can take it.
It's all right.
All right, all approved? Aye.
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 Any nays? All right, motion carries. Thank you all very much. So Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but that covered our application.
That was our payment requests, and now we will look at new applications.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. We only have 6 this month. For December, that's good. We sometimes have no more than a couple in December. There's only 3 of them that I even want to look at. Unless, Richard, do you want to look over the Donnell Smith one at all? I had no concerns on that one.
No, I think my biggest concern is she the cost estimate may change, but I don't think it'll I mean it's gonna be more than the cost share that we provide. So
Right.
she was kind of more interested in like a better looking cistern, but looking at the market, I think it's gonna just blow her budget out of the water.
Right.
She's single mother, I think, so I don't think she can really afford the single one. So we kind of put together the smaller square tote
Okay.
cisterns is probably the primary one, which is a little bit cheaper.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and
so
that
that's
one,
that's one major concern is
right.
that and the fact that they're definitely I would say the underserved population. So she didn't seem like she had a lot of money to throw around. So
Okay.
we'll see how she goes.
Okay. That one it's a relatively small rainwater harvesting project. They're only looking for $610 in cost share just because of the actual treatment volume there. And yeah, Richard, you're right. If the total cost goes up, it's not really going to make much difference unless they really reconfigure how much area they're treating. And that will be fine if they end up wanting to treat more volume and get more cost share. That's not going to be an issue, I don't think. So.
Or actually, let me walk back a minute. I think the cost estimate I gave you is probably for the larger cistern, but even the smaller cistern was still about $700, $800. So it should be over that.
Right.
Yeah. And I gave you both of those numbers.
No issue there. And I appreciate you doing those kind of standard designs for them. That's always nice. The second one, the David Drash permeable pavement from Henricopolis. We do need to take a look at this one. Kind of just 2 more process questions than anything on this one. I don't have any issues with the design or the site or anything. The first being, I don't think this is an issue at all. The Henricopolis board is not meeting again until their January meeting. Stacy Heflin had some concerns that, she can submit. We often get applications that are kind of, pending district board approval just when the timing of their meeting and our meeting doesn't quite line up. They're not meeting in December. I don't have any issues with that. They are aware of the work she's doing and that we're reviewing the projects. There doesn't seem to be any issues there. So we can give our stamp of approval as far as I'm concerned, and then her board can decide whether she's allowed to just move forward with it now or have to wait until their approval in January. But I feel like that's kind of in their hands at this point. The thing that will make this probably a conditional approval at best is the homeowner wants to do it himself. And with the size of the project, it is only approvable by us as the steering committee to give that waiver. The district cannot, since it's over 1,000 square feet. And I don't yet, Stacy says she thinks he's an engineer or a contractor or something, but I don't have any confirmation of that yet. So I think at best it would be conditionally approved once we know that the homeowner himself is, essentially qualified to do the work. But until then, I wouldn't want to, I probably would not want to officially approve it. You guys are seeing the application here?
And did that homeowner complete the application himself?
Yes. And it's a good application. I didn't have any issues, going through it or anything. So I think that's certainly a good indicator.
And he did the runoff calculations,
Mhm.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a waiver for that practice so that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the threshold, that the size of this project, this is a medium scale. So small scale, the district can approve a waiver. Medium scale, we can approve. Large scale, there is no waiver. This is in the medium scale, so we can basically approve a Form 5, for him. We don't have the Form 5 yet, nor do we have confirmation of his qualifications, that's the thing that gives me pause. Is
Right.
I think we can conditionally approve it and say the project looks good, and once we have proof, whatever evidence of his qualifications and a Form 5, then he can move forward with it. Would be my recommendation on it. This is just showing the amount of kind of runoff that's coming off of his driveway and some of the concerns he has, where you can see that a lot of water has gone through. He's having a hard time getting grass to grow downhill from the end of the driveway. Obviously, you can tell by the debris field that there's a lot of water coming off. Almost looks like a high water mark.
He's got a lot of shade too. That's one
does.
reason why I can't have grass.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he needs a different species of grass seed.
Right. Yeah, I don't think anything that's there could even be called grass, really. So yeah, this is, the main driveway coming down from the street and wrapping around the back of the house to this parking area.
So the parking area is what he's replacing?
Yeah, I'll show you the kind of
Okay.
full design of it, but yeah, his focus is obviously back here because and I think it's a great idea because he's got downspouts that are going to go into it, and then this driveway, it seems, kind of flows like a river sometimes, and that will all come down into it. This is just work he's done to try to stabilize the site, and this is going around the other side of the house. He's got rain barrels as well, so he's obviously been working to improve things. It's the same spot below the driveway. And this is just a little further down in the backyard. Here's your aerial view coming down the driveway and into this parking area back here. And this is practically across the street from where I used to live. He's got solar panels on his roof too. So there's the contributing area. So here you see that whole parking area in the back. That will be the permeable pavers. This whole half of the roof, and big portion of this driveway will all drain to it. He is placing it over Power lines with permission. Filtration test. Standard design. I do appreciate they've already included that there will be a small retaining wall on the kind of downhill end to hold everything in place, because this is one where there's kind of a lot of forces working towards the foot of the driveway, so that's good. So all evidence points to him, the homeowner, knowing what he's doing, because it's a good application. It looks like an application we would get, or a project description that we would get from a contractor. So that's it on this
Better than
one.
many I've seen.
I'm sorry.
Looks better than many I've seen.
Yeah, that's very true. Honestly, I may not, and this may reflect poorly on me, I don't know. I may not have noticed that it was not a contractor unless Stacy had clarified that for me. She said in her email that the homeowner wanted to do it. I don't know that I even would have noticed that this was not, a contractor designed and submitted project, because it's good. So my recommendation is a conditional approval pending, documentation and a Form 5 from the homeowner who wants to do the work. Does anyone else have additional thoughts on that?
I agree with your statement. I feel the same way.
Okay.
Looks good.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
it's a great application.
Yeah, and I guess the only thought I had, Kevin, was I guess erosion control might be an issue. I don't know how quickly he's going to be able to install the pavers.
That's fair.
Obviously, a professional group will be able to hammer it out relatively quickly, but he should definitely try to focus on doing the installation as quick as possible during a dry period. Otherwise, he needs to think about how he's going to divert water away.
That is a good. Although these days, is there such thing as a dry period? Because we could be in a drought and then get 6 inches of rain one day. So
yeah, it's dry right now, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation, and a good thought. That unless he's bringing in a crew of friends and neighbors or whatever, it could be open a lot longer than these permanent, because we do usually see these contractors knock out the project in a day or two. So that's a very good point. Okay.
I would imagine if he's working by himself, it'll probably be a week.
I'd be impressed if it was a week.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. Any other thoughts on this one? All right.
What if he's acting more as a general contractor and hiring subs? Because I mean, he's removing a ton of concrete.
Right.
To begin with.
Yeah, he's either renting a lot of big equipment, which the cost does not really reflect, or maybe just has access to a lot of big equipment, or he's going to be bringing in a lot of people otherwise. So the next one, Kemper, unfortunately, you're getting hung out to dry on this one, because the rest of your folks are not here. Y'all will probably recall we did not officially review this project last month. It was originally submitted to me. There was a lot of information missing from the application, and there was some concerns about the project. So we looked at it and discussed it last month. It was withdrawn by the district as an official submission in November, but we looked at it to try and provide some feedback. This is I feel like pictures are always the best reminders. A rain garden project that had significantly different sizing based on the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bays calculator and our formula. I will say that the missing bits of information have been filled in on the Form 1 and the Form 2. The total contributing drainage area has been clarified. There was like multiple different numbers last time. Unless Kemper knows of anything else, I don't know that anything else has been addressed or changed, or I think the question still remains that it is a huge impervious contributing drainage area, much bigger than we've really ever done for a rain garden before. And I'm struggling with where the line is between saying a rain garden is better than nothing, or this thing is not going to be adequate and it needs an under drain, or it needs this, or it needs a different, the one recommendation we had kind of provided was that some significant maybe conservation landscaping upland of the rain garden could really help stabilize the site itself and reduce the amount of water going in. But that was really where we left it. Kemper, have you still been involved with this? Do you have thoughts on that?
So unfortunately, I wasn't involved a lot, if really at all, with this. Sharon kind of kept us up to date with her correspondence back and forth with Brent Hunsinger with the
Friends of the
Friends of the
Rappahannock.
Rappahannock, who is a great advocate for the VCAP program in Caroline County. So unfortunately, I don't think that I'm much help, although I believe in my phone conversation with Sharon this morning, I guess she thought that with the changes that Brent had made, everything should be good.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I wasn't at last month's meeting, so I missed any of that conversation that was had earlier.
So, and in case it wasn't clear from me, that may be the case. I am struggling to find, what else was changed. Essentially, I can see where the square footage of the CDA was changed. I can see some other little bits of information that were put in. Otherwise, it looks the same to me. And I will say that the sizing is one thing. Our formula, and that we did get. Here's one other thing: we did get clarification on the depth of excavation and everything here. That was about the only other thing different, I think. I don't think the sizing is a huge issue because it is a fairly large rain garden. They've addressed that with the ponding depth and everything. I think the only concern I have left is what is it. Honestly, this reminds me a lot of the third Mark Rieger rain garden that we did not approve. That it's almost exclusively like bare soil and just a mess of a yard above it. And I don't want to be setting someone up for a BMP that's going to fail, if that makes sense. So if they're putting a rain garden here and it's all this area and all up here, if that's what's draining into it, which is the primary source, you look up this way. If they're super diligent about maintaining it, it may not be an issue. But I think at the least, a strong recommendation to stabilize the site above the rain garden, try to get some plants in, try to get some grass growing, something like that. The driveway is contributing some, but that's gravel, so that's still got a lot of debris and everything with it. So other thoughts from other folks?
I think if that area above the rain garden is habitually wet, with the rain garden maybe taking on that water, allowing that upland area to be drier and facilitate growth of whether that's grass or shrubs or a combination of whatever to better stabilize it, could be the thought process there, but wasn't necessarily put pen to paper to explain that.
Okay.
And I'm just surmising based on looking at the photos.
Right.
Yeah.
Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, my guess my thought would be, yeah, I mean, if it's an area that stays wet, I mean, we could, yeah, it seems like the rain garden probably isn't the best practice. That maybe either conservation landscaping, or we could look at the constructed wetland as a possibility if that's what they want to do.
Try to make
they
this
wanna
person be the first person ever to do that.
Yeah. So I don't think I think the standard for constructed wetlands still pretty open. I think we've tried making it open, but yeah, I mean, it just seems like it just needs some landscaping. I'm not sure what else I mean, are they trying to slow the water down so that it doesn't wash over the driveway?
No, it's not going over the driveway. And I will say, to clarify, that the contributing drainage area is 13,000 square feet, which is a lot. So, that is something where we typically would recommend some sort of infiltration practice. But I know this area, you know, and you can see from the pictures, the water table is not far down. And so I agree. You can see there's just water just sitting in the ditch. You can see that it's very wet here. I do have concerns about what they're going to find when they start excavating and how well that's going to function as well. So I guess what I'm saying is, based on the amount of drainage area they're trying to treat, a rain garden seems like it would be the better option than conservation landscaping. But if it's too wet for a rain garden, it's not going to function very well. So
Yeah, I mean, I still think maybe I know constructed wetlands seems scary, but I think they could probably do something that's about at the very least to be about the same cost as the rain garden.
right.
Or like a wet meadow. I guess it is conservation landscaping, but
Yeah.
that would be cheaper.
Other thoughts? I want to be able to give them an answer, but I don't know what that answer is.
Yeah, what's the soils? She provided the soils this time.
Yeah.
Because I think we just looked at those pictures and maybe the drainage area last time. But gave the whole soils report.
Yeah, it is the entire.
Yeah, let's look at the map and then we can look at whatever the dominant soil is.
They've got Slagle, Kempsville highlighted as the soil on that site.
Okay. And what's that like? Scroll down. This one.
Marine terraces.
Yeah.
That's not a good indication. Loamy marine deposits.
We got sandy clay loam.
Richard's idea of a constructed wetland is a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least with the constructed wetland, I don't think they would have to bring I don't think they would have to replace the soil. They could probably just utilize the soil that's there.
Right. You know, I mean, it does say it's moderately well drained soil. I wouldn't expect a marine soil to.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the well drained.
Oh, yeah.
How about infiltration?
And the infiltration rate was good.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it looked like it was pretty good.
I've looked through this so many times now that I'm forgetting where certain things are at this point. I hope we have one. There you go. So they went 24 inches and didn't hit the water table, so that's good. Greater than 1 inch per hour. So, I mean, maybe the photos are just misleading. Maybe it was just a very wet day or something, you know? I mean, if they've got moderate to well-drained soils, they got at least 24 inches to the water table. They've got more than 1 inch per hour of infiltration. That meets all of our standards, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe the photo that was taken, that you had a good vantage point from the ditch being full.
Mhm.
I wonder if that photo was taken kind of recently after a rain, and maybe further down that ditch, there's a lot of debris that causes it to drain slower than normal.
Yeah. I mean, it is, you know, it's definitely wet in the yard here too.
Yep.
What do we think about just a recommendation of moving the rain garden up a little further? You know, I mean, having this be more like where the overflow is, you know, I guess that's kind of arbitrary.
And how much impervious cover is it collecting? You said a little bit of the driveway.
13,000 square feet of impervious. The pervious cover is small. Where is the 450 of impervious?
I had to step away just a minute. Is there a reason why they're not considering conservation landscaping?
I don't know that reason. And I don't think Kemper does either.
I do not.
We did at least provide the recommendation of adding conservation landscaping, if nothing else, in the area above it. We provided that recommendation last month.
Try that. I mean, I can't remember the program requirements, but could they try that to see if that works first? Because it might be less expensive.
I mean, I think so. Yeah, an applicant could get cost share for conservation landscaping and for a rain garden, and I think they could easily make the argument that there is enough resource concern here to, want to do conservation landscaping in some area and a rain garden in another if that's not sufficient. But if that's our recommendation, I think we need to have a very clear reason why we're saying. We can't just say, why don't you try conservation landscaping first? We need to say, this is why we're not approving a rain garden at this time. And despite what it looks like, the numbers, the information says that a rain garden should function here. So.
Yeah. And it is collecting the driveway. They're kind of
A little bit.
because we talked about 40 feet and collecting impervious cover. So that's what they're talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So I'm okay with it, I guess, as a rain garden, as long as it's not a persistent standing water issue.
Yeah. I think at the very least, it should come with a recommendation of it's crucial that you try to stabilize or plant in the area above the rain garden to reduce the amount of sediment going in. And also with a clear recommendation, a reminder that they're going to have a lot of debris, leaf and sediment and other debris going into the rain garden, just because of what it's treating and where it's located and everything.
Could we just say conditional on pre-treatment? Adding some kind of pre-treatment?
They do have a kind of standard inlet, pre-treatment type of thing. I don't know that it's going to be enough, or at least that they need to clear that out regularly.
I think it could be something specific on the maintenance plan.
Okay. I'll make note of that.
Yeah, I think the approval of it with those recommendations for the stabilization of upland is good, as well as Richard's idea of the maintenance aspect with all of the trees and stuff around it. There will be, leaves and stuff every fall that will need to be addressed to make sure that continues to function as required.
Right. And that's one of my biggest concerns usually is when we have concerns about a project, I want to make sure that a homeowner knows what they're getting themselves into, that it's not, they're not just going to install it and be done. There's going to be ongoing work with it. And I want to make sure that they know that.
Exactly. Yep. It's not just a install and walk away.
Right.
It's an annual.
And I know that Brent has been working on this for a while, so I appreciate his persistence too. That's an important part of it as well. I hope that it will solve some of that issue. I think they're still going to have bare spots not uphill. It's not, upslope, whatever, of the rain garden, but I think that it will certainly help. Any other thoughts on this one? Okay. One other new one that I wanted to take a look at. It's an infiltration project at a church in Virginia Beach, which it's a different church, but we have done an infiltration practice at a church in Virginia Beach before. It's been a while. Looks good. It's just, different from the boilerplate permeable pavement projects that we usually see from down there. So I wanted us to put some eyes on it. Clay did reach out to me ahead of time for, insight on the sizing and everything of the infiltration. And so he double checked that with me before he even submitted. One minor concern that comes up for me, and you'll see in some of the photos. So there's this roof area and kind of it's almost like a sloped, it's the type of thing where the hillside's kind of built up to the side of the church. This is currently being used as a Christmas tree lot. Just like the last project we looked at, it's certainly going to have to come with the recommendation or the clarification that you may need to relocate that in the future if you're going to build something here to not, trample all over it or get tons of debris in it. So a linear infiltration trench, I think it's well placed, kind of capture what's coming off of here and to keep it from pond. They're having like water seeping out onto the sidewalk and stuff, and they're trying to prevent that, and especially ice in the wintertime and all. Not that that's a huge concern in Virginia Beach, but here's kind of a profile view of what they're wanting to do. It seems pretty standard. It's just a long linear infiltration trench. Bay Environmental is well known, trusted. So here's the current site. It's a little hard to see that the ground does actually slope up pretty much to these windows, but they've obviously got Christmas trees piled on top of it in the picture. But from what I can tell, it's right about across the tips of these Christmas trees where they want to put the infiltration trench.
It does look like there's some utilities there, those flags.
Yeah, and I believe they've already got them marked for this purpose to make sure they're going to work around those. It looks like they've got the room to work with, but there's definitely a lot going on there.
And the trees are on the mound.
Yeah, so I don't know why this picture is so far away, but you can see the mound there, and then along here, way up where this other person is. Maybe they're just showing that here there's a bit of a berm that prevents issues or something versus down there, but this one's a little easier to see.
Or maybe that berm kind of funnels water that way.
Yeah, you're right. It probably does push a lot more of it out across the slope there.
So are the downspouts going to it, or is it all?
I don't think there are downspouts. It's just roof running onto this hillside, and because you can see they've got like a drip line gravel type thing here. So yeah, that raises the question of how much impervious surface is flowing to it. They have already done mist utility, or I mean obviously we saw the flags, but it was for this purpose. Prices all seem reasonable.
Yeah. And I guess it would all, because of the overhead lines and the proximity of the road, there might be other right-of-way easements. Is that?
Yeah, I'm sure the sidewalk, is probably a city or VDOT right-of-way.
But they're putting it on the road side of those yellow flags, you think?
Yes, I think that's what it appears, yeah. So it's going to be fairly close. I would disagree with that statement, but I think that just goes into all of them.
Well, the date of that estimate was January of last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
They might want to revisit those costs.
Right. That's a very good point. Yeah. Let's see.
Especially like the stone cost. I think that's, in any kind of travel delivery that might have gone up.
Fabric has definitely gone up. We've had to increase our price.
That's a very good point, because this currently is well under the cap, the cost share cap, so that those costs could be going up a lot. Okay. Very good point. Thank you, Deanna. So yeah, I got all the sizing and everything in here. All looks good to me. Do we have concerns about it not being directly piped from the roof, that it is all overland flow to it? I mean, they're going to have a sod layer on top and all that but
yeah, I guess I would have just a concern that maybe it's not collecting the drainage area that they think it might be collecting, because it is going to be flush with the ground.
Okay.
As opposed to having like a berm or something to, make sure that things go to it.
Right. Okay.
Did it make mention anywhere in the application of fabric being used to encapsulate the stone?
Yep, that's right here. They've got.
Oh, okay. So then my one, I guess, recommendation moving forward, if I'm seeing all those tree stakes for the Christmas trees that they drive into the ground. If they were to, after installation, drive the stakes through the fabric and through the sod into that textile fabric and then into the stone, that would cause, albeit a long time to happen, but infiltration of sediment and stuff into that
Right.
57 stone that would over time cause that to not function properly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll add that as a reason. My strong recommendation is going to be don't use that site for your Christmas tree sales anymore, because they're
Yeah.
even so, we've all seen, you get these kind of compacted paths between each row of Christmas trees in the wintertime, and they're going to be, tracking everything through there. So that's a very good point though. Otherwise, I think we've addressed all of those concerns. Any other questions on this one? No? Okay. The last two for new applications, the the dry swale from James River looks exactly like a completed project we approved last month. It's in the same neighborhood, and it's a long linear swale, where water is flowing down either side of the house into the woods in the back. Laid out the same way. Infiltration tests are done. Everything looks good. They've done a bunch of those at this point. And then the last one is a rain garden from Culpeper. And if we can't trust Richard to submit a rain garden to us, I don't know who we can trust. So that one all looks good to me too. No issues on that one. Any final thoughts, questions, concerns on any of those? Okay, so that it was 6 new projects, total cost share request of $29,837.75, with the David Drash permeable pavement project from Henricopolis being a conditional approval contingent upon proof of homeowner qualifications and a signed Form 5 waiver. Say that all again, Kemper.
Very good. We'll need a motion to approve the 6 new applications with the application number or David Drash with the contract number 4021004 be conditionally approved. Anybody want to make a motion? Can I make the motion?
Sure.
I will make the motion to approve these 6 new with the 5th, or with the 1 being conditionally approved.
I'll second.
Can I ask a question? Back to the church one, are we approving that one as is, just adding those notes?
I was considering those recommendations / feedback from the committee, but a full approval.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Kim.
No, that's quite all right. I think I heard a second, but I didn't catch who.
Oh yeah, second by Judy.
Thank you, Judy. All approved? Aye.
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 Any nays? All righty, motion carries. Thank you all very much. Moving on next, we need to look at our 2022 steering committee dates. Everybody's got their calendars open.
So, I think we normally do this in November. Overlooked that last month, and our district staff members keep me honest. I had 3 different people since the November meeting say, hello, where are the 2022 dates? I said, sorry, we'll do that in the December meeting, and I'll get them up as soon as possible after the meeting. Let's see. So I will just run through, and then in the case that I miss any special occasions or holidays or anything, just let me know. Looks like January 28th. February 25th. March 25th. April 29th. It's not usually until later in the year that we've got holiday conflicts. So then May, let's see. I'm blanking now. Have we typically just bumped it back to Thursday on Memorial Day weekend or just to the Friday prior? I'm forgetting now.
I think we had this last year. We had it on just the Friday. Let's see. No, the Friday prior, I think is what we did.
Okay.
I don't know if it impacts y'all, but keep in mind that's Envirothon week and golf tournament week.
True. Which we've done.
I think we've done it. We've done it either way. We've done it either
Yeah.
the Thursday before the Friday of Memorial Day or a whole week before.
Do we want to just do the Thursday before so we give people max amount of time? I think one of the concerns way back before Mora was I needed an amount of time between the deadline and the steering committee meeting, which was why we bumped it back a whole week. I think is Thursday the 26th all right? I think we've done both in the past.
Looks good to me.
All right. And then that avoids that busy week the week before for the association. Thank you, Kendall. June 24th.
When do you need to have your final for the year ending in June? Do you need any final payment requests? Will have to be, you have a deadline in maybe May. I mean, you don't have but a few days after that
No,
to
I mean,
process anything.
our standard deadline is June 1st.
Okay.
Final payment submissions. And what we've done the last couple of years is if necessary, we've done either a very brief meeting the first week of June or even over email, I think 2 years ago to approve. But that can be something we schedule later if needed. July 29th. I know this is kind of a silly process, but thank you for bearing with me.
August the 26th would be the Friday following Graves. I don't know if that was an issue.
We do that almost every year. It's not ideal, but typically what that actually helps is folks get all their stuff submitted the Friday before Graves, and then they're all good, and then it's just on us at our end to make sure we get the stuff processed, which normally we can do. But thank you.
Perfect.
August 26th, all right, otherwise. Okay. September 30th. October 28th. And then, of course, our weird months.
You say the 18th of November?
Sorry, I didn't say yet because I'm being super slow. Yeah, so that I think bumping to the Friday before makes sense since for a lot of people, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of Thanksgiving week is, yeah, so November 18th. And then, so then December 23rd. No, December 16th.
Okay. So you might not have a lot of attendance on the 23rd of December.
That's fair. Sound good to everyone? All right, I will, I'm going to finalize that. I'll put it on our website and I'll probably send it out over the VCAP listserv. I'll try to do that today because I know a lot of people are going to be gone after today otherwise. But that should be it on that.
All right. Well, that leads us right into y'all's hiring update, which is
Hey.
exciting.
We have a good update. So big thanks to Deanna and Kendall are both on the call, as well as Don Wells, director from Hanover Caroline, for being on our interview panel. We had the fear put in us by a lot of folks about how hard it was going to be to hire right now and to get a candidate pool. I think we had a good candidate pool. We conducted 5 interviews for the position and had several really good candidates. And we offered the position, and Darby Reed has signed her contract to be the new VCAP assistant coordinator starting on January 3rd. She came in and visited us in the office last week just to kind of, get started, get set up with Kendall, get everything that she needed, kind of get a plan for January. She comes from currently a background of working with AmeriCorps Vista programs, where she is sort of a HR person of sorts for AmeriCorps volunteers in national parks and national forests, kind of all over the region. So she is very familiar with processing a lot of applications and doing a lot of that end of things. Just like Maura and I were when we started, a little less familiar with stormwater specifics, but we will get her up to speed on that. And we're excited to have her on board on the association staff. So
Very good. Well, I'm sure we all look forward to meeting and working with her.
absolutely. And we'll have her, she'll be on the January steering committee call. We'll try to phase her into everything as best we can. But you'll at least be able to meet her digitally then.
Very cool. Kendall, did you have anything you wanted to say? I saw you turned your camera on.
Oh, I think Kevin covered that well. I think before he wraps up his coordinator report, I have a few updates too in terms of legislative items, but we're good for now.
You want me to hold off on governor's budget then, Kendall?
Please.
Can do.
Question.
Yes.
Your comment about meeting her digitally reminded me, are we assuming that the meetings set for next year are going to be digital until whenever?
I think we assume that for now. We will, at the
Okay.
very least, we're going to make a Zoom link for all of them, go ahead and get that set up and get it on the association's kind of Zoom calendar. I don't know that I foresee any meeting in the next calendar year where we wouldn't at least offer a Zoom option. I think we have talked about at some point, getting back to maybe alternating, maybe like once a quarter we meet in person. That's kind of what we were talking about. And Robin, I'm realizing now that might've been before you joined the group. Getting back to maybe whenever it's back to normal, if that even exists, maybe like 2 out of every 3 meetings is on Zoom. And then once a quarter we meet in person and maybe like see a completed BMP or meet somewhere cool, because we used to meet in person every single month and we didn't even do a virtual option. And folks have obviously appreciated the convenience of not having to drive to another district or drive across the state or whatever for the meetings, but we also miss seeing each other in person. So maybe a mixture, but for now, I guess everything is still Zoom for right now. So
Cool. Thanks.
Absolutely.
All righty. Next up, we've got the coordinators report.
All right. I will keep it brief. The main focus since our last meeting has been on hiring a new assistant coordinator and just kind of holding things down while we're short a staff person, staying on top of everything. Lots of plans for January to kind of really kick back off a lot of the things that we've been talking about for a while. I will try to get, as of today, all of our approval notifications out from this meeting, get the calendar of 2022 dates up, wrap up anything. I'm planning to be off most of the next 2 weeks. We'll see how that goes. And then the most important news actually falls to Kendall, it sounds like.
Sure, I can touch a bit on governor's proposed budget, which was released yesterday. We've been asking for unprecedented levels of funding, and the governor's draft budget puts us in a really good position as we head into General Assembly session. I want to make sure before I start tossing numbers at you that we are a long ways off from a final budget. The General Assembly, both the Senate and House, can change things, not till April when we have a final budget, but we're in an amazing place at this point. So just because I know y'all have interest too, I want you to hear the whole big picture. 313 million in year one deposited in the Water Quality Improvement Fund. That's 8 million for small herd initiative, 6 million for prep, 4.5 for poultry litter transport, 2 million for buffers, like numbers that are unbelievable that I could keep going on with. But of that 313 million, 230 million deposited into the Natural Resource Commitment Fund in the first year, starting next July 1. That is all Ag BMP dollar. That is the only thing the commitment fund can be used for. I won't get into the weeds of what's Bay and what's Southern Rivers, but they have fully funded the ag needs assessment that is done annually for essentially the biennium. It's a 2-year budget. So I'm saying year one. I have talked to Secretary Jennings and Secretary Ring, spent the afternoon with them yesterday. It's in year one, but doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend it in year one. No recognition that it has to be spent in year one. Not necessarily 2-year grant agreements again, because those were a disaster at DCR, but recognizing that the money is non-reverting. This was surplus dollars and is a required deposit. So might be something that the Soil and Water Board does, holds back some funding for ag cost share, handles allocations differently, but a lot of money coming at potentially districts on ag cost share side. In addition to the 230 million in year one, they have also deposited 26 million in year two to the commitment fund. So literally at unprecedented levels in terms of meeting that needs assessment and doing it over the biennium period. 45.5 million for dam rehab, just for districts dams. A new position for district ag engineering at DCR, a new district dam inspector at DCR, specific to support districts. What I'm really excited about is that $4 million for VCAP starting July 1st. Also, again, recognition that a grant agreement with DCR could be worked out so that it doesn't all have to be spent in 1 year, but potentially 4 million over 2 years, and we figure out how to really allocate and obligate it, with the understanding that 2022 brings a lot of opportunity and a lot of excitement and possibility between the NIFWIF grant, the VEE grants, the Let's Remodel TA. If 4 million really is what comes to fruition, this is our opportunity, even with state funding, to really change the dynamic with VCAP. So policies that you talked about earlier, absolutely, as a whole new day, potentially not just ag cost share, but supporting VCAP long-term too. One point to make about the VCAP 4 million is there is language in the budget that says no less than 25% be used for low-income geographic areas. What low-income geographic areas means, we still need to dig into. It is referencing what low-income geographic means for the floodplain preparedness fund, which is the locality's median household income not greater than 80% of, gosh, we can pull the code language up and look, but know that looking at DEIJ and how do we provide additional funding to those geographic areas, with even the conversation of, are there hardship? Is there something that, I mean, I heard Richard talking about a single mom who just didn't have the funds for an application. Perhaps there's a way to apply for greater amounts than just what is available in terms of rates. So totally a lot of conversations that we could have on the horizon, and really a new next step of what maybe VCAP is coming down the road. I'm really kind of excited about that. That's a lot of money. There's still plenty of money and opportunity to shift and change, but honestly, there was so much support for VCAP yesterday that of all the things to shift, I think it would really be the ag BMP dollars. Do you really get 230 million? Is it 200 million? Like, that's where we're headed. But the 4 million at this point doesn't have concerns or complaints. So get excited and ready for 2022. I'll stop there, Kemper.
Oh, very good, Kendall. Thank you so much for that update, and hopefully nothing changes for the worse between now and April.
I have a couple of questions if you have just a few
Yes,
minutes,
Deanna.
Kendall.
Yeah.
So we've heard in the news a lot that the governor-elect is considering some tax credits or to return some of the excess money in the budget. Does that affect these surpluses? That's one question. And then how does that work when the new governor comes in? Is how much impact does he have on the budget? Will he be able to cut things or add things, etc.?
Sure, great questions. So I can tackle the second a bit. The administration, no. So a governor writes 2 budgets. The only one he gets to implement is the one he does 2 years in, and it is the one that we're just finishing. The one Northam writes right now goes to the General Assembly. So it is out of Youngkin's hands. He goes to the General Assembly members just like we do to ask for changes and revisions. So he is lobbying appropriators no different than stakeholders at this point.
Okay.
While it's not the administration change for some of these cuts, it is more of, I'm concerned is not the word. I'm more curious to see what happens on the House side, which has had a change in party dynamics because of the last election. So most of our key appropriators, the people who were chairs of those, like Delegate Boulevard, will no longer be chair because it's not the party, Democrats, Republicans. So Barry Knight is now going to be the chair of appropriators from Virginia Dare. So we have some new relationships and ones to build to ensure, certainly we've been talking about it, they know, but we're more curious of what will happen on the Republican-led General Assembly delegate side at this point. Dina, what was your first question? Tax
Just
credits?
because a lot of this is excess money, funding surplus, and there's been talk in the news that the governor-elect's gonna be returning some of that surplus.
So great question. To our understanding and what even House Appropriation and Senate Finance Committee members have said and articulated to General Assembly members, the surplus funds, there is a required deposit of 10% into the Water Quality Improvement Fund. So no, there are 2 or 3 things that they have said are stand true, you cannot do anything with. And we are excited that this funding for WQIF is one of those. There might be some wiggle room on other tax changes and cuts, but it is our understanding, and one that even Farm Bureau, Agribusiness, all the stakeholders have said, and we've never seen WQIF surplus dollars ever be reverted back because most stand true to the fact that this is a required, as does the General Assembly. I don't see the WQIF funding going anywhere. What I do see as a possibility of funding returned and maybe changed, all of that 313 million is a required deposit because of surplus. I said 26 million additional for ag cost share in the second year. That's general fund dollars. That's going to be amazingly hard to hold on to, I think, when you have unprecedented levels because of the surplus deposit. So no, while I think we have a lot of money to fight for, I don't think it is money we're fighting that's being returned. It's more, I think, how the language works out. So 313 million into Water Quality Improvement Fund. Is it really 8 million for small herd? Is it 6 million for crap? I think it is the breakdowns that we're going to have more discussions about for funding.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. It's complicated, and as long as I've been with the district, I still get confused and I have to write it all out to try to keep it straight. I don't know how you do it.
I got an overwhelming, ridiculous spreadsheet too at this point, and a lot of stakeholders and friends that are trying to do the math myself. Something to, I think, also think about is that I don't think these funds are for surplus dollars are as much an issue, but I do think there's going to be some education needed with legislators to understand what the surplus dollars mean. We haven't never had this significant of a deposit before into WQIF, and while there might be interest in that, I think legislators still need that extra education of what WQIF is really for. It's kind of floated under the radar at times, and certainly with that significant of a deposit, it won't. Also, Northam's budget does not allocate all of the funding. There's 425 million left from the American Rescue Plan Act. There's 300 million unallocated in other areas. So while there might be some return of funding, Dina, in other areas, there's also some additional play money that has just essentially been handed to the legislature to keep unobligated for now until we have a better understanding, or to use where they think appropriate.
Wow. It's
it
great
is
news.
unprecedented.
It is. That's amazing. Any news on, and I heard that the governor-elect has not chosen any cabinet members yet, but any news that you're getting for Secretary of Natural Resources or Clyde's position?
Also a great question. It is a little bit late in the game at this point. In past administrations I've worked with, to not have heard any appointments, especially not even just chief of staff. is a bit unheard of. And at this point, we assume that's strategic, that they were waiting for the budget and, you know, closer to the new year to start rolling out things significantly. There's a lot of names on the rumor mill and a lot of folks who have had to sign non-disclosure agreements. So it feels like the rumor mill has stopped in the last week when those NDAs have been signed by so many folks. I will say one of the strongest names we've heard for Secretary of Natural Resources and an individual who's pursuing it the hardest is Matt Lohr. Many of you know him. He was a past delegate, past VDAX commissioner, past chief of NRCS, also a Clean Water Pharma winner. He's a producer, still a full-time farmer out in Rockingham, and has worked with Shenandoah Valley District. His cousin's been on the Soil and Water Board, so he's worked with us really closely. I like Matt Lohr. It is unprecedented for the association to throw any support behind anyone who is pursuing or on the rumor mill, but this year we actually did write a letter of support for Matt when he reached out to us. So that has been submitted to the transition team. I don't know that I put a lot of stake in many of the other names except Mike Bolband. Many of you might know him. He's from the Northern Virginia area, but those are the two main names we're hearing at this point for Secretary of Natural Resources. As for DCR director and other agency directors, rumor mill put stake in, but we do have, I mean, I've had a conversation with Clyde. He will be leaving at this point, certainly burning some leave time. He's required to be made available for the transition team and all, but I would expect and have confirmation that we would be seeing a different agency head director. As for your other agency directors, though, Dave Paler, he's looking to stay on. So I have heard rumor that this governor would want to appoint his entire secretariat and cabinets before doing anything else. That's not always the case in other administrations. They'll necessarily appoint or keep on some agency directors and then go back to cabinet. Point being, they want secretariats to play a role in choosing agency heads this time. So stay tuned. I think we still have a lot to learn, and this administration is a bit overwhelmed from what I know and have been able to hear from folks who are on the transition team. There's a policy team, a landing team, and some of those stakeholder groups of which we're involved haven't even met yet. And that's really late in the game. With the North administration, our first stakeholder group conversation was in November after the election. So Youngkin's crew is behind, but also I believe overwhelmed with both the interest and positions as well as the who to bring on to help, especially since Youngkin has had no political experience.
Yeah.
That's a lot of non-answers. I'm sorry, Deanna.
No, I think it's great. I appreciate you taking time and giving us an update, and appreciate the steering committee allowing me to ask those questions that aren't exactly steering committee questions, but just wanted to know what's going on.
It impacts VCAP too and all of our district work. So happy to join, really excited and glad to listen in, catch up on VCAP work happening right now. But really excited about 2022 programming for VCAP and opportunities ahead.
Deanna, great questions. And Kendall, thank you for all that you do for us,
Right
from
back at you,
VCAP
Caitlin.
to VAX and everything in between.
Yeah, thank you, Kendall.
Right back at all of you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business. Any items for January 2022 meeting?
I think we're gonna need to hire somebody else. Another person, I mean, additional
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Kemper, we will certainly do introductions with Darby and everything. I mean, that doesn't necessarily need to be an agenda item, but we'll maybe spend a little more time on that kind of thing. Yeah, Deanna, your
You're
comment.
not wrong, Deanna, right? Like it's something that we'll need to think about.
Yeah. And that really, we were already toying with the new TA structure and everything. And this, I don't know, it is unprecedented to ask for $2 million and get offered $4 million instead. Like that's not normally what you expect. So I think it really does change the equation of what does TA look like and how do we, and not taken out of context or anything, how do we compete with ag cost share in the coming year? It's not a competition between these two programs at all, but we know, we recognize the amount of time that districts and their staff are going to be having to put into truly record shattering ag cost share. So how do we keep VCAP on the radar too?
I mean, I think it's really more about how do we build district infrastructure
Yeah.
across the board now. It's not how do we compete at this point. It's
Right.
how do we support both programs to really meet the 2025 deadline. And you're right, we'd asked for 2 million in the first year and had said we'd love 2 million in each year of the biennium. Like, if you can make that happen, that would be great. And they said, well, we'll just give you the full 4 million in the first year and you figure out how to implement it. So
Yeah, there's a lot of capacity issues here, not only for the
No kidding.
association, districts, but even DCR. I mean, they have a huge workload, and I see with this much more money, more requirements that we're going to have to, that districts are going to have to address, more reporting requirements, just because they'll have more.
Dina, you're exactly right. Capacity is going to be the big push for all of it. It's never have I had a session where I haven't had to craft 12 different versions of an ag cost share budget amendment, needs assessment level, $35 million level, a reasonable level, admin operations budget amendments. And right now, my only budget amendment I'm working on is admin and operations, because now, while folks have understood what technical assistance is, they need to really bring central operations up to par too. So that 3.6 million is one that is a really big ask and our key priority. And we're looking to reach out to Hanger, Senator Ruff, Bulova, and Bloxham in hopes to carry that so that capacity issues are helped that much further on the operations side.
Hey, Kevin Kemper, can I suggest, I guess we should probably start talking about training too, as part of the capacity. We don't,
Right.
we just set the steering committee schedule, but we haven't done a training schedule.
Right. That'd be a good item for January, and something we
Great
could
item.
really throw Darby in on, because that will eventually fall into her court as well.
Yeah, and I'll try to give a TAC update too. I need to send something to the TAC. I'll probably do that next week.
I guess the other one issue that has been in front of us recently is just the I have a lot of people who are interested in VCAP but are not finding landscape professionals and contractors who are willing to take it on. So I don't know the full history of why some people might be hesitant and others just don't have time, but I think that's an issue for us here in just trying to build the capacity of the local professional crews.
Okay.
That's
Judy,
been an issue here, Judy. We've had a couple people interested in conservation landscaping. They can't get an estimate.
Yep.
So we're kind of stuck.
Yep, same here.
Yeah. And is it the design commitment from some of these companies? Or maybe we need to
Partly.
survey these companies to figure out what the issue is?
Yeah, I think there's some just the amount of cost that it, for them to be involved in the project and see it through in a way they feel like is, meeting the client's needs is expensive and hard to pass on to the client is one issue. Another is just we have a handful of people relative to the, the appetite of the community for this kind of thing, I think. So, we just need to reach out more to the landscape community, which we're working on ideas of how to do that here, but certainly, any help and sort of larger program push would be great.
Actually,
in
really
our-
helpful.
In our area, it's just we'd have not enough landscape contractors, and we even did the design for the suggested plant list. We really just needed them to come out and just look at the site and give an estimate of the labor and plants, and they just don't have time. They're busy with other clients, and that's our issue right now here. Maybe that'll change in the new year.
Okay. And maybe that's a chance to reignite our relationship with CBLP too. I mean, they do a lot of work to try to get contractors and landscapers at least certified in it. But if it's more of an industry shortage, that's a much bigger, more challenging question. But
And that was exactly the point I think I was going to make. CBLP, but also Mid-Atlantic Erosion Control Association has asked the question of what is VCAP? How do we help? Is there any contractor groups we can, promote trainings for you? We've had For the Soil and Soil Health wanting to build off of VCAP and put that in their programming. So you're right. What you're telling me is that partnerships and trainings and how to bring contractors in has got to be a really key priority for 2022 too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think CVLP is great, and I'm totally I love it and enjoyed every minute of it. But I do think it does tend to be more geared towards designers and people who don't mind sitting through a lot of seminars and things and taking tests. So I just see that as a little bit of a gap in their program. It'd be great if there was a way to provide something parallel that for more on the ground folks and for Spanish opportunities too, and just real on the ground type training.
Okay.
And Kevin, are you gonna? I guess we're gonna do something with the strategic planning, right?
Yeah. Yes. I promise that has not fallen off of my radar, not even a little bit. You've got the recap of what things have been like between the November and December steering committee meetings. Hopefully in January we hit the ground running and all that stuff. So.
Alrighty, I think announcements was next, but we've announced quite a bit. I don't know if there's anything else left to announce other than moving to adjourn at 10:47.
Move to adjourn. This is Judy with a happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you, Judy. And we have a second?
I'll second all of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone. We all approve?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Very good. Well, I'm sure I speak for everyone. Thank you for all of the work done this year by the VASWCD staff, everyone that sits on this committee, helping each other all year long. I know there's a lot of staff that rely on other staff to help answer questions and concerns. So it's been a great year.
I appreciate that, Kemper, and I really do. I also want to express how much I appreciate everybody on this committee. We have come a very long way over the past 5 or 6 years, and all of you have been involved at one point or another through that process. So I'm proud of where we're at, and as Kendall said in the chat, we've got a lot ahead of us in 2022, a lot of exciting new things. So appreciate that.
Thank you all, and thank you, Kemper.
Very good. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. So have a good rest of your Friday and a good weekend, and happy holidays.
All right. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank